bite to it on the left rear, about 25 more pounds. I started at 100, and I went to 125, and it got a little better. It was a little loose in the middle, and then I went just out the end, what I showed y'all there. It got a little better. I'm gonna put just a hair more. I am really asking a lot of this 750 spring without a bump. I'm gonna put just a, I'm gonna raise this right front just a little bit. That's gonna put me a little more bite in it. We'll see what that does. And then I'm gonna run it one more time. Oh, and I'm gonna put fresh tires on it and see how that acts, because these are really old hard tires. Wasn't no point in me just turning laps and wearing out new tires, so I'm gonna put some new tires on it and see how she acts. We'll go from there. Alright y'all, we're loaded up, but don't run off, because we're going to take it, next part of this video, we're going to put the car back on the scales, see where we're at, and then I want to do a deep dive. We're going to go through BSB Shocks I've got on it. I'm really happy with how they're acting and everything. It's all new technology to me, but after I got some laps in, got comfortable with it, it's gold, y'all. I was really happy with how the car ran. That video was the second 2 runs I made. I took the car out on the track, made just a few laps, and then I made some adjustments on the car. Cranked in a little more left rear. I thought I had 100 pounds of bite in the car, but I ended up cranking some more left rear into the car at the track. Made a couple adjustments there. Then I made a full run, several laps there, and came in, and then we turned around and we put fresh, all new tires the whole way around the car and turned several laps, and that was the last run there before we cut to this. And the car was rotating good. It was free. I really wanted the car to be freed up and easily drivable. That's going to help me run on a lot of different tracks. And so that's what I was looking for, and it was. No issues at all with the car pushing or anything like that. It was rotating great, and it was tractioning up great off the corner. So I was full throttle coming off the corner. Now, this motor I've got, it's not a big motor that you can build more motor for crate racing. This has got a hydraulic cam in it that'll pull about 16 or 17 inches of vacuum. So it's not got as much horsepower as I could have, but it's what I got available right now, and I could hook it up completely on a bone dry track with the wind blowing 20 miles an hour on a sunny day. So I'm super tickled with that. Now with that said, brought it in the shop, set the air exactly to what it was on the track when I made that last run, and put it right back on the scales. We've put all that on the board. Let's go over it. I didn't write down the ride heights because I was cranking on stuff at the track, and my ride heights are all messed up. What I'm really wanting to do is just find out where the scale numbers are at, because I'm going to correct my ride heights, and then I'm going to come back to this. But I want to show you, I had my air pressure, you know, left front 17 pounds, left rear at 14, my right front was at 21, and my right rear was at 17. Now these are on 8-inch rims on Hoosier H500 tires. This is kind of my standard. This is what I ran on my Camaro as well. And where these numbers came from is a couple of years ago I talked to Shannon Rush with Hoosier, and he had suggested these as minimum air pressures. And I've been on them and I've liked them. I've got good results with them, so I've been sticking with it. And I'll play around with them a little bit, but I won't typically go lower than this on any tire. I might go up some on sometimes, but I never go lower. Scale numbers here. All right, so you see, I'm sitting here and I've got 102 pounds of bite. I thought I had that much bite in the shop, but I definitely cranked in about 50 pounds of bite at the track. So what I've done in the track at the shop, scrambling and stuff to get ready and everything, I was a little lighter than 100 pounds of bite when I left and showed at the track, because the car was a little bit loose in the middle of the turn and transition from brake to throttle. I was tailing out that first couple of laps, came in, cranked some left rear into it, and now I ended up at 102 pounds of left rear bite. Car is real neutral entering into the turn, transitions well through the middle, and no problems at all driving off of the corner anywhere I want on the track. And again, one thing to consider here is that I'm not racing against anybody. I wasn't getting lap times to make comparisons or anything. So the car can feel good and neutral and be really freed up. And I could be off on my lap time and not realize it. So that's why I want to run this car in at least one local race before I take it to a big show, because I got to really find out where we're at against competition as well. But 102 pounds, now we know how we figure that. Our left rear is at 804 pounds. It's with me in the car, race fueling it and everything. The right rear is at 702 pounds. That difference of this left rear weighing more is left rear bite, okay? So that's where that 102 pounds is coming from. My rear percentage, that's the two there put together. My rear was at 51.7, all right? And the car is at 2,912 pounds. I had to write that down. But anyway, it's at 2912 because I had bolted in some more weight before we left the house. I was at like 2814, throwed 100 more pounds on the rear. That got me up to 51.7 rear for 2912 total. My left, I'd moved some weight over. I was over 54. I got it down to 53.1. I don't want the left to be way greater than my rear here. That seems a little odd to me. But I like 52, 52, 53, 53, somewhere right in there. And I'm really wanting 52% rear, period. All right, so these are my numbers that I'm at. What do I know I'm going to change for sure? Well, I'm fine with this left. I want this rear to be a little higher. And because I'm on an open motor with a 2-barrel in the Crate Racing USA class, this has got to be 3,000 pounds. Now, we're putting a spoiler on the rear of the car, we're putting a roof on it, we're putting pillars on it. That's probably going to add at least, I would think, 30 or 40 pounds. But regardless, what we're going to do is I am going to cast up two more 40-pound bricks of lead. I'm going to use another ballast clamp, and I'm going to bolt these on, and I'm going to bolt them center on the rear, not to the left or to the right, because I'm going to try to maintain that left percentage there, and I'm going to bring this 51.7 up, and it's going to go probably a little above 52, I would expect. Should get me right at 3,000, and then with adding on the additional roof and the spoiler and stuff, that should get me a little bit of margin above 3,000 to take care of me if anybody's got any discrepancies on their scales. I'd rather be a little bit high of 3,000. Now that we've got this covered, we're going to turn around, pull the skins back off the car around the sides where we can work on it. I just want to show y'all the BSB Shocks. I am just tickled with how this turned out. I think Mr. J. Neal did me a great job on figuring out 4 shocks for us to start out on, so I'm going to show y'all this as well, so don't run off. We joined Mr. J. Neal's BSB program, his Go Fast program, for BSB Shocks. And the reason that I went with the BSB Shock, the main reason is because Mr. J. Neal's putting information out on YouTube. I will put a link in the description to his website. He's got all kind of videos where he's just very transparent about showing exactly how the shocks work and how that he works with people in order to figure out what shocks they need and everything. I asked Mr. J if I bought shocks from you, are you going to have any issue with me just showing exactly what I'm around the car? He said, nope, no problem at all. Show everything about it. Help as many people as you can, and I appreciate that. So on the rear, we went with the 15 series shock is what we went with. And I've got all 4 shocks. These are gas shocks. Mr. J put me on a, this is a hold-up shock, I guess is the best way I would describe it, on this left rear. But the shock that we went with on this car is a 500 pound, let's see, the left rear, this is a 75 pound rebound, 550 pound compression. All right, so 75 pound rebound, or yeah, 75 pounds of rebound and 550 on compression is what this left rear is. And the right rear on the car is a 40 pound rebound, 110 pound compression. I'm gonna write these down on the board before the end of the video, don't worry. But anyway, so that's my rear shocks. The reason I want to show you here was right here, these O-rings. I mounted this shock, my mount, of course all my mounts are homemade. I tried to get this as straight up and down as I could right here, and of course they have to be on the rear now. But this mount right here, the way I've got it, this was the worst. I just left the O-ring alone, and the worst situation that I got into with the car, and that was me jerking around everything, I had about 1 inch of clearance. I may take and lower this mount slightly. I may lower this another ½ inch. I want to make sure I don't bottom this shock out. So I'm going to lower this mount slightly for this one. I think the right rear is just great. Got over on the right rear plenty, jerked the car around a lot, and I've still got a good 2.5 to 3 inches there of compression left where that O-ring is at on it. So rear shocks, I think, like I said, the only thing on them I see is that I'm going to lower this mount just a little bit. I want to make sure that I don't, I said top, but bottom the shock out. The inside of the piston hitting against the housing inside the shock, anything like that. Don't want to tear these shocks up. All right, let's go to the front. All right, so here's my left front shock. On my left front shock, what we've got on the left front is a 100 rebound and 160 compression on this left front shock right here. It seems to be fine. I've got another 1.5 inches on O-ring clearance when I left it alone. Wasn't bottoming the shock out, anything like that. And of course, I'm not picking up the left front wheel at all, nothing like that. The whole front end is staying compressed as I go through the turn. So everything looks fine on this shock right here. Let's come around to this right rear, right front, excuse me. All right, this right front right here, Mr. J. Neal calls this the Gorilla Fist, and it's the right front, and it's a GF 500 rebound, 130 compression. This thing is unique. When you press this car down on the right front, it takes a while before it comes back. But I wanted to point out a really important point right here. These shocks are matched to this car, to this chassis, to these springs. These lower control arms are a different ratio for the spring ratio than what a metric is or what a Nova is, because they're the 73, 77s for this frame. And so a 750 spring on this car and a shock mounted outboard on this car won't be exactly the same. And so, you know, I had a conversation with Mr. J. He developed me a starting point with 4 shocks for this chassis and for how I was asking, or what my target was for how the car would drive. I was looking for a car with only about 52% rear. I wanted it to be really free, where that I would be able to be, it would be drivable in traffic on a lot of different track sizes and types, you know, much freer car. And that's what I was looking for. And so he developed what he felt like was the best starting point for me on this chassis. That's going to differ chassis to chassis. So I'm going to be very transparent about exactly what we're doing on this car. You know, I don't expect us to stay exactly on these shocks. This is our starting point. As I collect data, I get information. There may be things about the car or areas it could improve, and we may change particular shocks, get something revalved. I would expect once we've collected enough data, we may buy some additional shocks, where if we go to drastically different, like rough or short stop and go tracks, there may be a couple of different shocks I need to put on the car. But this is our starting point for us to start collecting data and get that figured out. It is a relationship that you would build with your shock supplier, whoever that is. It's new to me. This is all new technology. When I first drove this car, I just checked the drivetrain, went down the street and back to make sure I had no problems before I took it to practice. And this thing seemed like it was all over the place. And you know, it kind of scared me a little bit. But in reality, what it is my Camaro, I'm running real neutral shocks compared to this on my Camaro on the leaf spring setup. And so I'm used to the car being really tight and locked down, even on the street, turning right or left or doing whatever. And so this is very different. But at speed on the track, this thing locks down like it's on a rail. So it's just different. It's, you know, kind of scares me a little bit at first. I've got to learn it and stuff. I'm just being completely honest about it. It's a process to go through. Let's see what else. Oh, I wanted to point out right quick. Check out the headers right here. So I prepped those headers correctly. and I purchased the VHT header paint that's for that, and they looked great. And I did them correctly. I stripped them with paint stripper. I cleaned them. I used steel wool to scuff them and everything, and then used multiple thin coats to paint them and everything. Did them exactly the way they should have been done. And one practice session and just cooked that stuff right off. And so I'm disappointed. VHT header paint. No, I'll either live with them being rusted, or the next set will be a ceramic coating or something. Next up is getting the roof painted and on, get the spoiler on, get the pillars on and everything. I'm going to put that weight on the rear and everything. We're going to try to run the car this next weekend at Camden Speedway in West Tennessee. We'd like to get a good race on a track with some fairly stiff competition, and just make sure everything checks out on the car, it's driving the way we want, it's on pace and competitive. And then the following weekend, which is April 8th, 9th, and 10th, we're going to run it at the Mississippi Street Stock Series Golden Egg in Mississippi. We're planning on running the car at that event, and a lot of stuff still got to come together to make that happen, but we are making it happen. If you have not hit that thumbs up button for this content, do that now if you can. It makes a huge difference on us getting this information out there to support this sport that we love. I appreciate it. And hey, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, folks. This is great stuff. See you next time.